Time having arrived, I hereby call the special city council meeting for June 14, 2017. Please stand and salute the flag.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilors, a couple pieces of information, if we could. Ward 2 Councilor Tom Monahan called me en route. He unfortunately got called into work for an emergency situation. He has to go down to Seekonk. He won't be joining us here tonight. And I do want to take the opportunity to congratulate our colleague, Councilor Elijah Moses Rodriguez. Today is a special day times 2. It's his birthday, and more importantly, his 31st wedding anniversary. So, congratulations.
Hope you remembered.
Poor thing.
Tough to get married when we're 32,
Yeah, no
right?
kidding,
Yeah.
We have the call of the meeting.
Accepted and placed on file, councilors.
We have the officer's return of notice,
Councilors, that also is accepted and placed on file.
and we have the order of the annual budget for fiscal year 2018.
Councilors, as you know, as you were here, and I want to thank all those in attendance, all the department heads are here, the mayor's here, CFO's here. Thank you very much for being professional last week. It's a long 3 days, councilors, but we sat as Finance Committee. And as you know, on Friday night, when we concluded Finance Committee, there was some debate relative to if we send it back favorable at that time, which is what we did. But as the Chair of Finance and now as the City Council President, now is the opportunity, councilors, if any councilor would like to make any motions relative to reductions, or you could use the word cuts. Councilor Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, after a conversation with Mr. Condon today, we had a successful bond sale earlier today, and the success of it will now enable us, I'd like to make a motion to reduce the treasurer's debt by $100,000 from $11,959,840 to $11,859,840.
Second.
So motion on the floor. It was properly seconded. All in favor of the reduction as stated by Ward 1 Councilor Studinsky? Raise your hand if you're in favor of that. Raise your hand if you're opposed to that. That matter carries. Thank you for that, Councilor. Are there any other councilors that have any potential reduction? Councilor Fowler, followed by Councilor Barnes. Oh, you know, we're going to let the woman go before the gentleman. Councilor Barnes, please.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Shall I do them both now, or just one at a time?
You have the floor, Councilor.
Okay. So the first one is actually a direct result of the mayor's testimony at the hearing on his personal budget. He was questioned about his out-of-state travel and some of the funding that, you know, carried over, or I forget the word.
Encumbered was the word. Yes,
right.
Councilor.
So I, at this time, would like to propose a cut from the mayor's office in the other section, mayor out-of-state travel, by 3,539, and it would be reduced from 8,539 to $5,000 even.
There's a motion. There's a motion that was properly seconded relative to Councilor Barnes, as stated. All in favor of that reduction relative to the mayor's out-of-state travel, please raise your hand if you favor that. Please raise your hand if you oppose that. That matter carries. Thank you, Councilor. You have another?
I do. Thank you, Mr. President. Also, as a direct result of the testimony from our Veteran Service Officer, Mr. Farrell, it was determined at that time, or at least enough evidence for me to determine at that time, that the outreach veterans officer that was new probably about 2 or 3 years ago, that person is in fact not a city employee, but in fact an employee of the VA program. However, it was established that his salary is being paid out of city funds. And I have a problem with that, and I've spoken with Mr. Farrell a few times about it, and I guess this is the negotiation season for that contract, and I just think it's unfair for the city to pay for an employee of the VA. That person is not an employee of the city. So at this time, I'd like to propose to make a cut from the Veteran Services Department in ordinary maintenance services, and it's an account I want to cut by $24,960, which would reduce the original line item 29,250 to $4,290. And then they can go into negotiations with the VA to make sure that that person is paid for his services through the VA to, I don't want to cut the services, but they just should be paid out of the right funding source.
So motion, that's in the form of a motion. Councilor Barnes?
It wasn't in there, it was in here.
While we're talking about veteran services, I'm going to make a plea right now to the CFO and to the mayor. When Mr. Farrell came before us, and I know all my colleagues concur with what I'm going to say, it was stated that because of financial restraints, there's certain bands that Dave can't afford to have play at the different veterans parades. And I'm asking if you could please, Mr. Condon and Mr. Mayor, come up with the money for that. It's short money. It's really, really the right thing to do. So, Mr. Mayor, if you could please take that into consideration, it would be strongly appreciated. Thank you. Thank you, councilors. Councilor Bond, you still have the floor.
Okay, I'm actually talking with legal counsel.
We'll take a 1-minute recess. Councilors, we're back into session. Councilor Barnes, you have the floor.
Yes, and at this time, I'd like to correct my proposal. I had the line item number, not the total amount number for that particular group. So it would be a reduction from the ordinary maintenance services line item of 31,050 in the amount of 24,960, which leaves $6,090 even.
Councilor Barnes, before we put it on the floor, if it's seconded, I just had a question. I know, as my memory serves me, when you had the discussion with Mr. Farrell, I piped in as chair saying that there was a contract and you could review the contract. You have the ability to review the contract. Because it's my understanding that that person, even though it was a VA employee, the outreach is to the community of Brockton. So did you get an opportunity to check that contract?
Yes, actually I did. It's pretty standard. It was about a page and a half. It wasn't very detailed or specific or anything, but I did get some additional, like I said, most of the information I got was directly from Mr. Farrell, so.
Okay.
I
thank
did
you.
see that.
Okay. Councilors, there's a motion from Councilor at-large Barnes on the floor. Is there a second on that motion?
For the sake of voting, I'm going to second the motion.
There's a motion on the floor. It was properly seconded relative to the reduction that Councilor at-large Barnes just stipulated. All in favor of those reductions as stated by Councilor Barnes, please raise your hand if you support that reduction. If you oppose that reduction, please raise your hand. The reduction does not prevail.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell, you have the floor, followed by Councilor Beauregard.
Good evening, councilors. My first comments are going to be regarding DPW water. If you have your budget book with you, I'd ask you to turn to the page which has desal, variable charge, and then line item 529413. And I believe that appropriation, or that amount, is for us to purchase approximately 1 million gallons a day from Aquaria.
Council, what number is that again, line item?
That would be, and by the way, I have a handout for everyone if the clerk would provide it for the remarks that I'm going to make tonight. On the DPW water is line item 529413.
Thank you, Councilor.
Yeah, I have one.
Thank you.
And while this is being handed out, you may remember in March, councilors, that we discussed an administrative consent order, and Attorney Fedorov was here. She continued working on that administrative consent order, even though she had left and gone on to a law firm. And at that time, we went over the administrative consent order, and I specifically asked her, so this really has no financial implications, this is merely housekeeping, and she answered in the affirmative. Now what I'm hearing from Commissioner Rowley is that DEP either has or is going to impose a certain minimum number of gallons per day that we're supposed to purchase from take from a source other than Silver Lake. I don't want to fund something if I haven't seen the administrative consent order, the final iteration of it. I want to see exactly what we're being told we have to do. I want to know exactly what the financial implications are, short-term and long-term, because I think the ratepayers deserve that. So my motion would be to reduce by $1 million that line item. It would go from $1,792,658. Oh, all right, I went by the budget book. Thank you. Strike that. My reduction of $1 million, it would take it from $1,993,784 to $993,784, $993,784. Clearly, we may have to buy some water from Aquaria, but I think we owe it to the people here in the city to know exactly what a consent order says and to know exactly what we're going to have to be paying. Not only this year, but is it going to carry over to the next year? Is the amount going to be larger next year? I don't know, and I think those are some questions that we should answer.
Council, it's a form of a motion.
Second.
It's a motion.
we
Council,
get a-
on the motion?
Can we just get a second, I mean, just a minute, just to check on something real quick, Mr. Chairman?
Could we, excuse me, point of, we have a question on this. Could we, if there's no objection, can Mr. Condon get up? The way I look at this is a zero mayor recommended amount anyways.
Is there any objection to have the CFO appear before us, City Council? I don't see any. Mr. Connell, if you'd like to appear before us, thank you.
Councilors, if you look at the beginning of your budget book, the actual budget order is behind the mayor's letter. I think the account that Councilor Farwell is looking to cut is the appropriation for desalination variable charge purchases, and that's $1 million separately appropriated, and I believe that's the one you're looking to reduce. He's looking at in the budget book, it's part of other appropriations, but in the budget order itself, the legal budget, it's a separate budget for $1 million, and a reduction of $1 million would take it from $1 million to zero for the desal variable charge.
Just a question to Mr. Condon.
Council Farwell, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr.
Would that
Condon.
leave $792,658?
In the rest of in the way the budget book portrays it, it's a part of a larger appropriation, but the way the actual budget order worked, it pulled it out. So the correct motion would be $1 million to zero.
Okay. My apologies
Okay.
for not using the budget orders.
Okay. It would leave us with no money to buy, if that's your
Why are
intention.
we reducing?
Not a dime for variable water.
Thank you, Mr. Condon. Council, is that still a form of your motion?
Yes.
There's a motion on the floor. It was probably seconded by Councilor Barnes. Councilors, all in favor of Councilor?
Excuse me, I just want to
on the
make sure,
motion?
I'm sorry, what we're voting on. So we're now voting to take that $1 million line item to zero.
That's the motion that's before us.
Thank you.
Councilors, the vote's now coming before us. All in favor of Council Farwell's vote, please raise your hand. All opposed? It passes. It passes, Councilor Farwell. That reduction, councilors, that reduction does come into effect. Councilor Farwell, you still have the floor.
Yes, next I'd like to turn to the police department, and I appreciate the discussion that we had during our budget hearings. And in particular, I'd like to go to 514100, the overtime appropriation, and I will now grab my budget order to make sure that I don't duplicate the prior error on the appropriation. While I'm pulling this up, councilors, you may remember that the chief indicated that he could live with a $200,000 reduction in the amount that appears in our budget book. The amount that appears in our budget book is $1,521,000. Strike that. $1 million. Blind over these books.
Council, I believe the chief had recommended 1.1 and the mayor had recommended 1.3.
In the budget book, it appears $1,320,552, and the chief indicated that if that were reduced by $200,000, he could live with that. I'm actually proposing a larger, slightly larger reduction of a total of $330,138. Now, I've spoken before about what is our commitment to the police, and I think it's unquestioned. We routinely transfer money to the police when it's needed. But we also talk a lot about what does the council do? And during budget time, it's our opportunity to provide some accountability and oversight over spending and department functions. If we just hand off the money and say, go ahead and spend it between July 1st and June 30th, effectively the day-to-day operations, as they should be, are run by the mayor and the chief. Is there anyone here tonight that knows whether we'll have walking beats if we approved all of the money asked? Does anyone know if we would have code enforcement? Do we have any goals and objectives in front of us that tell us if you approve this money in overtime, this is what you're going to have? And I don't think that's an unreasonable request. I think that's why people send us here, to find out how is their money being expended and what do we get for it. So the $330,138 would come off, and certainly I hope we don't. The mayor has rightfully pointed out that crime is down, homicides are down. Those types of cases routinely and a lot of investigatory time. I think it's a reasonable cut, and I think the police, if they need additional money, can come in and justify it. And I would say, as an outside to this, I do think that we should ask our council president to sit down with the chief and ask him for some reports on how can we improve police-community relations, how can we improve community policing, what type of code enforcement program will we have, who will be assigned, how often will they go out, what will they target. And let's find out exactly what we're getting. What return on investment are the taxpayers getting for the money that we give to the police department? And again, I'm not saying they don't need extra money. If they do, they can certainly come in and justify it. And this will give them 9 months, even if they spent everything they asked for 9 months. I've only cut 25% from that amount originally requested. And I think it's perfectly reasonable for us to act as counselors and provide that level of accountability and oversight. Thank you.
Counselor, I'm happy, and I know the chief would be ready, willing, and able to meet with me as well, Counselor. Counselor Farwell, also I noticed on the handout you gave your colleagues, there's a note section comment. He's saying relative to what you just stated to us, this final amount is approximately $220,000 above fiscal year 2017?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So there's a motion on the floor relative to police overtime as stipulated by Councilor at-large Falwell. Do I have a second on that? You have to
Second.
articulate it. There's a motion on the floor, is properly seconded. All in favor of the motion as stated by Councilor at-large Falwell, please raise your hand if you're in favor of that. Please raise your hand up high, councilors, if you're in favor of
Sorry.
it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you're opposed, please raise your hand high so the clerk can see it, please. That reduction passes, Councilor. Councilor Falwell, you still have the floor?
Yes, just the last one is in the court time category, and I do hope that next year, because court time is overtime, folks, it's paid to officers who are off duty and who have to appear in court. Once again, crime is down, and that is good. That should mean less grand jury proceedings, fewer court cases, and I'm proposing a cut of $197,144 in your budget book. It's line item 515100. That would still leave $591,432.
Okay.
I hope we don't have a spike in crime. I hope we don't have officers having to go to court more often. If they do, we can certainly have the police department come in and indicate, unfortunately, this is what has occurred. We need additional funding, and as we have done this year, I certainly think we can provide it. And I would remind you that even though I believe it's our Shannon grant was cut back, we still had a number of grants come into the police department which provided additional funding. So during the next fiscal year, I would anticipate there will be 2 or 3 grants coming in that will augment what we give to the police department. And some of it, in the wording of the grant documents that we received originally, indicated that it could be used for overtime.
It's a form of a motion by Councilor Falwell. Is there a second on the floor?
Second.
There's a second by Councilor Beauregard. Councilors, there's a motion that was properly seconded relative to a reduction as stipulated. We'll hold off. Legislative Council has to hold off. We'll take another minute recess. Back in session. Councilor Falwell.
With the help of the clerk, the reduction would be from $22,424,029 to $22,226,855.
Councilor, again, that's relative to the motion that's on the floor. So I need a second on that, Councilor.
I had seconded.
Yeah,
thank
he
you.
just gave us corrected numbers,
Okay, I'm
Councilor.
sorry. So
The
I'll
last
second that.
comment I would make,
On the motion.
I want the councilors to debate this. I don't think this is I've suggested it, and it should either be voted up or down. Councilor Studensky's a former police chief. If he thinks this is out of line, I want to know it. I just think that we've got to bring some measure of control to these overtime expenses in the police department. I don't think they can continually go up year after year and be sustained. So please chime in. I welcome any criticism and comments from my colleagues if you think that this is perfectly unreasonable.
Councilors, bear in mind, during the Finance Committee meeting last week when the chief was before us, I mean, it was stated many, many times that we are very much supporters of the men and women in blue that support the citizens of the city of Brockton. The mechanism is to come forward for appropriations. In the past, police department, all departments have come back before us, and we've understood that. So, Councilor Fallow, by all means, I mean, this is an ability and an avenue for debate and discussion, as I stated last week. If anybody wants to question Councilor Fallow, we have a motion on the floor right now. It was properly seconded. On the motion, Councilor Cruz.
On the motion, are we sitting tonight or are we standing? On the motion. I just want to make sure I understand this. So we're making, the proposed cut is from personal services other than overtime? 22 million. So it's not overtime? Correct. Thank you. So it's not an overtime cut that you're looking to make a cut from other than overtime? Thank you. I just want to make sure that we understood that.
Councilor Falwell.
Yeah, and just by way of clarification, that's how they put it in the budget book. Personally, I think it should be under overtime, because when officers are paid for that duty, it's overtime pay to them, but it will come out of the non-OT section of the budget because of the way the budget was crafted.
Okay, so I'm voting on...
Councilor Cruz, you still have it.
So I'm voting on other than, this is not an overtime budget we're voting on. That's all I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President. I just want to basically state to my colleague, you know, I too see the issues with the overtime being a little out of whack. We hear that constantly from everybody, but to me, it's almost senseless in the sense it's almost like we're playing little games. You know, we're taking $5 here, but we know that they can come back for the $5 later on. So to me, it's almost like if we want to really look into getting our hold in what's going on in overtime in this city to begin with, I think we need to be men and women enough to basically demand from these departments that they come in front of us on a regular basis and address the issue that we're talking about. Because frankly, as when we were here last week, the chief said that he could live with the $200,000 cut. But I know that the councilor was basically quoting numbers when you first made the motion. The numbers that you're quoting are the numbers that were in the book. Those are not really overtime numbers, because you actually at the council meeting made a point that they have spent around $1.5 million worth of overtime. So it's not $900,000. So even cutting it down to $900,000, I think we're putting ourselves in a situation where they'll be back in here in front of us in a matter of weeks to address this issue again. So I think it probably would make sense to go along with what the chief had recommended and then demand that the chief come back in a couple months or so to give us the updates that you had so graciously talked about.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilors, bear in mind again, that vote has already happened. It was a 6-4 vote relative to the item you were talking about. Relative to what you're talking about right now, even though it's stated as a non-overtime expenditure, I believe it was articulated that it's court time, right?
Yes.
The big basis of that is court time.
Yes.
So that's what's before the council right now. Councilor Rodriguez, you still have the floor.
But Mr. Chairman, are we looking just at the court overtime, or we're looking at the overall
Get at the
budget?
total number that he talked about relative to the line item on non-overtime.
But I think he's talking about the entire budget itself that he's cutting from, right? So if he's talking about cutting from the entire budget, I think we're going back to the first vote as well.
Well, just a point of information.
Councilor.
I would defer to the clerk on whether that brings us back to the entire budget.
No, the entire budget of the police department, I'm talking about.
For the police department.
Correct.
But just as a point of information to my colleague, it was my intention by noon next Tuesday to file an order that this council would receive bi-monthly printouts of court and overtime and other earnings so that we can get a grasp on who's being paid, in what rank, and for what reason. Because I agree with you, that's the continuing oversight and accountability that's needed. It's not a one-shot deal.
Councilors, just point of information, relative to the agenda item that passed, the reduction, That was Mr. Fowler's original one. Legislative Council gave it to me. It was, I hereby move to reduce from the Police Department personal services overtime. It was 330,138. It reduced from 1.320552 to 990,414, and it did pass 6-4. So what's before us now is not an overtime matter.
Mr. President, I just want to point out that by cutting this in that personal services, this line item, we are not voting on a cut for overtime of the court system. We don't direct how that money is spent, that line item is spent.
100% accurate.
Just as in the past, I know we had councilors who wanted to cut certain jobs out and thought if they cut that amount out, that that job would be cut. We do not manage that department. This cut will be across the board in the personal services, other than overtime, for the chief to make a decision how to spend that. So I just want to point that out with this. We are in no way voting on anything to do with court overtime directly. We do not run that account, and this account is for the personal services other than overtime for the police department, and it could take effect in any way that the chief makes that decision.
That's correct, Councilor
Thank you.
Cruz.
Just wanted all my colleagues to know that.
Thank you, Councilor Cruz. Councilor Farwell.
Yep. And again, I agree, but we're talking, I hope, about honorable people. We're talking about having the chief and the mayor here who are listening to this dialogue. And if we're focusing in on a line item in the budget that deals with court, I would hope and I would expect that if this passes, that's where the reduction would be made. Now, if we're in a situation where council makes a reduction in personal services, and even though the entire focal point of the debate has been on court time, and they decide to do something else, then I think we have a bigger problem than court overtime. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to move the vote, councilors. We have a motion on the floor. It was properly seconded.
That's for a roll call vote?
Absolutely, Council. There'll be a roll call vote on those. A roll call vote.
Azak.
No.
Barnes.
Yes.
Beauregard.
Yes.
Cruz.
No.
Ioneary.
No.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
No.
Rodriguez.
No.
Zadinsky.
No.
Sullivan.
No.
3 in the affirmative, 7 in the negative.
Councilors, that reduction did not prevail. Councilor Farwell, are you complete relative to that?
That's it. Thank you.
We'll go to Council. Thank you, Council. We'll go to Council Beauregard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hereby move to reduce the Brockton 21st Century Court budget. I'm going to use the line item. I have 531705, the development, the account by 100,000, reducing it from 150 to 50,000. I want to make clear that the CFO had forwarded us an email. There are 2 accounts on that. I'm sorry. This is on, we don't have numbers on our budget pages, but it was in the mayor's, under the mayor's budget. And economic, that he had asked us not to remove the money for the stadium and the Shaw Center. This was my interpretation in that email. And this would be really primarily for staff salaries, because I believe at this point we need to look at economic development more seriously. We're not seeing enough, how would I say it, activity in our community to help continue tax, how would I say it, jobs for our community, and also taxes from businesses, that if we don't get the businesses coming to our community, of course, certainly we cannot benefit from all that. Thank you.
Councilors, I do want to say that Michael Gallerani and John Marion were in the chamber, and no questions were directed to them that evening. There could have been the opportunity to do that, but I do just want to state for the record, they were indeed here in the back. They were here that evening. Councilor Beauregard, is it the form of your motion?
Yes, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, the clerk and I have different...
Another recess for 1 minute, please. Councilors, we're hereby back into session. Council Beauregard.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. President, okay, the CFO, along with our council, has, we're staying with, it's the business and economic development aspect of it, and we are reducing it by $100,000, but we're reducing it from 125 to 25,000.
125,000 to 25,000.
Yes,
There's a motion on the
we
floor.
have different numbers, thank you.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second by Councilor Farwell relative to the reduction as stipulated by Councilor Beauregard. You have something on the motion? On the motion.
On the motion, I'm going to support this, councilors.
Yeah.
21st Century Corporation has been in existence for 24 years. There have been promises made and promises not kept. In 24 years, that organization has not built up a relationship with the business community where they can even raise sufficient funds. We've got to give taxpayers money to them so they can survive. They signed a promissory note on the stadium, and to date, I'll bet they haven't paid back but about $6.5 million out of an $8 million promise. And I have news for all of you. They're never going to have the assets to pay that off. The taxpayers are going to end up being stuck with a meaningless piece of paper. So if some people want to continue to give them taxpayers money, as I always say, I respect everyone's vote, but I am not going to do that.
Thank you, Councilor Farwell. We're going to move the vote unless anybody else has anything on the motion. So motion on the floor is
Excuse me,
properly...
just a question.
Councilor.
This motion has nothing to do with the baseball stadium, correct?
No.
Thank you.
Oh, point of information, don't they manage the stadium?
Not out of this line item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My error.
Specific to this specific line item. There's a motion on the floor properly seconded. All in favor, please raise your hand high of the reduction as stated by Councilor Beauregard. All opposed to that reduction, please. The reduction does not prevail, councilors. Councilor Beauregard, did you have any other reductions?
No, thank you.
Any other reductions before us, councilors? Councilors, we're going to take another recess so we can do some calculations, okay, councilors? Councilors, I hereby call the special city council meeting for June 14, 2017 back in. Councilors, as you know, the recommendation of the budget for fiscal year 18 with the stated reductions is before us. Came back from finance. Cuts were made tonight relative to the favorable recommendation. Now the questions are going to be before us, councilors. Questions on adoption of the budget for the Board of Health with a roll call vote, please. Mr. Clerk, kindly read the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. It passes, councilors. The question now is on the adoption of the budget for DPW Water Enterprise Commission Department, and that's on a roll call vote as well, please. Mr. Clerk, kindly read the roll.
Yes.
I have a question, actually. Is that with the... Never mind, yes. Thank you, sorry.
I'm sorry, I have the question. Is that with the deduction, the reduction?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor.
Yes.
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 Yes. It passes, Councilor. Now the question is on the adoption of the budget for the Personnel Department, Councilor. Roll call vote, Mr. Clerk, kindly read the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. It passes, councilors. Now, councilors, the final question before it is the adoption of the budget for fiscal year 2018 as amended. It's a roll call vote necessary. Mr. Clerk, kindly read the roll.
No.
No.
Yes.
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 Yes. It passes. It's hereby passed, council. Fiscal year 2018 budget as amended is passed.
Mr. President, I
Council
move for
Farwell.
consideration in the hope that it does not prevail.
Second.
Motion made, properly second, reconsideration. Hopes it doesn't prevail. All in favor of reconsideration? All opposed? Reconsideration does not prevail. Thank you, councilors. Councilors, thank you first of all, councilors, for this. Couple of pieces of information, if we could. It was a long, drawn-out process, but I do want to say, I think some information was brought up during this process, and one piece of information, Councilor Yaneri, if you'd like to please articulate.
Thank you, if I might, Mr. President. And I just want to go back just for a moment in regards to the issue that we had, or discussion, I should say, last week, one of the nights we talked about in regards to the cemetery budget. I've also been able to speak with our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Condon, and with the Superintendent of Parks, Mr. Carpenter, as well, in hopes that we can put the position that is a part-time position to a full-time position, which is $19,054. Mr. Condon, in speaking with him this evening, I know he's departed already, but said he's going to do what he can do, and Mr. Carpenter is going to work at his end to see what they can do as well, whether there could be some small increases to fees. But I think that's going to happen, and they'll be coming back to us with that appropriated amount. Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. Councilors, I want to, first of all, I want to thank the department heads that have stayed here. This meeting hasn't concluded, but I do want to thank those that stayed. And unfortunately, both the CFO and the mayor left during your statement, Mr. Yaneri, so I hope that it was duly noted. I do also want to say an update. I spoke to Mr. Santos, Bill Santos, as a result of Councilor Lodge Rodriguez's request to update the city website relative to the city council page. I sent out an email as well for information purposes. It has been stated to me, and I've shared with you, to get photos on that page. We have to go to Ms. Cruz' personnel department to the office to get photos. Then Mr. Santos will be able to take those photos and put them on the website. I do have a meeting next Tuesday, 8:15 a.m. at Brockton High School to meet with Mr. Santos to show him all the illustrations of the other municipalities that Councilor Rodriguez gave me. So that's the update where we go from right now on that, councilors. Councilors, I also want to share with you through Ward 1 Councilor Tim Cruz a moment of silence. Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to ask the council and the audience, I came from a wake tonight, longtime Brockton School Department employee and a wonderful teacher and adjustment counselor, Phyllis Gardner Reardon passed away, and she was a wonderful woman from a wonderful family, and treated her, got some kids through schools that were, they'll always owe her, and I just want to ask for a moment of silence for Phyllis. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council. Our thoughts with Mr. Reardon and the three children, of course. Jen Reardon was a longtime assistant city solicitor here under Mr. Harrington, when he was mayor, under Jim DeAmbrose as solicitor. Councilors, on a really, really positive, exciting, really truly worthwhile, our esteemed legislative counsel, Mark Gilday, tomorrow gets sworn in to be a Superior Court Justice in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's an unbelievable career move for Mark. He's a friend of all of ours. He's a heck of a lawyer. He's going to be a fantastic judge. 3:30 tomorrow will be the ceremony here. Mark actually has served here at City Hall, this esteemed body, for many, many, many years. In fact, 1987 is when he started, and he'll conclude tomorrow, 2017. So on behalf of the City Council, Attorney Mark C. Gilday, if you could please come forward. Again, we're losing Mark, but he's not going too far, and our hopes, and we'll cross our fingers, is that the Commonwealth will station him in Superior Court here, which would be wonderful. We have a citation, and I want to thank the city clerk and his staff for preparing it. City of Brockton official citation. Be it known that the Brockton City Council hereby extends its congratulations to Mark C. Gilday, Esquire, in recognition of outstanding legal guidance and professionalism as legislative counsel to the Brockton City Council from 1987 through 2017. And be it further known that the City Council extends best wishes for continued success, that this citation be duly signed by the President of the City Council and attested to, and a copy thereof transmitted by Mr. Zioli, Clerk of the Council. It's offered by all 11 City Councilors. Mark, we thank you and we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
As you know, Mark is a man of few words. Excellent legal scholar, but he's a man of few words, which is a rarity being Irish. But again, tomorrow at 3:30 will be a really good thing for Mark and his family and all of us. Councilors, is there any other moments of personal privilege? Council Beauregard, followed by Council Cruz.
Oh, let's let Councilor Cruz go first, please.
Actually, I just wanted to, on behalf of the council, thank you. This has been a particularly tough year to do the budget with the way we had to do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I won't say what some of the councilors called you when you said Friday night meeting, but I want to thank you on behalf of the council. It was a fairly seamless process, and I know what it's like to be up there, and it can be confusing and it can be tough, and I appreciate you did a great job.
Oh, thank you, councilors. And the councilors, thank you. You know, councilors, I too, and my wife can attest to this, was contemplating if we should do Friday night or not. Twofold. Number one, we had a high likely that our esteemed fine Congressman Stephen Lynch was going to be able to join us on Friday night. Unfortunately, he needed to stay in Washington, D.C. But also, as a counselor, we know how important this budget is. So every day is precious. And we're talking about teachers and aides in the Brockton school system that have their pink slips. Every day matters for them for career planning. So I thought it was appropriate and the right thing to do. So I do want to thank everybody. I know it's tough when we have family and other commitments, but I think it was the right thing to do, and I want to thank you. And anything at Council Beauregard?
Yes, I want a few moments of personal privilege.
A few moments, Council. Yes. Remember, Council Rodriguez has to take his wife off for anniversary, so we'll be limited.
Well, at this time, first of all, I want to thank, the council, for having done what we've done. But it really is time to take a seriously hard look at the fact that we don't have sufficient economic development in the city. I know I might sound redundant and repetitive, but come on now. We're a city of over 100,000 people. We have one of the most spectacular school systems in the Commonwealth, if not the nation. And we produce remarkable individuals, some of them coming out of our high school speaking more than 3 languages. We are have 2 hospitals, forgive me, 3 hospitals. We have an institution of higher learning, and we border another institution of higher learning, and we are close to 2 others. We are at the point where we have highway system, commuter rail system, and an excellent bus system. Why aren't we getting economic development? Why aren't we seeing more biotech? We're a lot more reasonable than a square foot in Cambridge. Why aren't we seeing more financial investment in other capacities? It's unacceptable. Department heads should not have to come and grovel for their budgets, and we shouldn't be accepting inferior. Why should we let our buildings deteriorate because we don't have the money? Why should we be expecting our phenomenal superintendent of schools, Kathy Smith, to come up here and say that she's minus $16 million? We don't need to lose teachers. Our students deserve teachers. Our students deserve small classrooms. We're not less and inferior to other communities surrounding us. We deserve equipment that works, and we certainly deserve to have roads paved. Some of us, that is our request daily. And these people pay taxes. Why shouldn't they get what they deserve? I realize there's always challenges, but again, we need to really look at how B21 hasn't brought us into the 21st century. I'll leave on that note because a lot of people contacted us seriously concerned about taxes going up. The values of our houses are going up. I don't understand why we can't bring businesses in this community. And then I'll end on more positive notes because we have such a remarkable school system. Our summer resource guide is out. For those of you with smartphones and go on laptops, you can download it. It's a big, fat guide to what's going on in and around this city for your kids this summer, your grandkids, and whatever, okay? And 2, right now, thanks to the not-so-great weather we've had, in most instances, we have enough water, and we are at the advisory phase where there is simply right now voluntary preservation of water, so you can water your lawns, take care of your plants, but that could change, and I just wanted to let everyone know that. I mean, I sincerely hope that people are wishing the students the best for a safe summer, and our teachers, and let's hope we can bring them back, and the aides and other people that make the school department and the students the success they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Ianieri, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to get out over the airways that next Tuesday evening, June 20th, at the John F. Kennedy School, I'll be holding a ward meeting, so I invite all my colleagues, and especially my colleagues at large, to join me. That's next Tuesday evening, 7 o'clock p.m. at the John F. Kennedy School on Ash Street for a Ward 3 meeting. Thank you.
Counselor Lally, please.
Thank you. Moment of personal privilege?
Absolutely, sir.
To build off of what Councilor Beauregard said in economic development, I will be having a community meeting June 21st, that's a Wednesday, from 7 to 9 p.m., where we'll have the developer of the proposed sports complex off of Howard Street. He's going to come in, show the plan, talk about what he intends to do, and answer any questions or any concerns. The week after that, Wednesday the 28th, that's at the Brookfield School. The week after that, Wednesday the 28th, again 7 to 9 p.m. at the Ashfield School, Jay Condon and Aldo Petronio will be coming to what is my quarterly ward meeting to break down the budget for anyone interested in attending. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other piece of information? Councilors, I first of all want to say again, we're in summer session. We will be meeting on Monday night, next Monday night, 7 o'clock for FinCom. And then the following Monday will be an 8 o'clock City Council meeting. And then remember, for July, August, September, unless we need a special, it's going to be the third Monday, 7 p.m. for Finance, the fourth Monday, 8 o'clock, full City Council. And I do want to recognize and thank everybody. I was joined by Councilor Studansky, Councilor Beauregard was there, Councilor Ianieri, Councilor Fowler, I'm sure a lot of other councilors I didn't see when, Lally, I'm sure you were there. The pop-up, Campella Pop-Up Village was an awesome event on Sunday. It really was. It was a hot day. People dressed the period, and there were a lot of Brocktonians there and people that came from outside the city and came to Brockton. So it was a good, and I said to Lynn Smith, you know, kudos, and I'm not just calling out Lynn, there was other people, many people involved, but I said, listen, for year one, it's over 300 people, 350 people that came during the day. It was a great event. So kudos and thanks to everybody that participated. Anything else before us?
Mr. President, just for clarification, I have on here on our schedule, June 26th at 7:30. Is that no longer the case for a meeting? I wrote it down here for some reason.
We would be at 8 p.m., Counselor, for city council.
Okay.
Monday the 26th, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. We come a half hour early for the photos.
Okay, I thought it was, okay, I knew there was something here.
No,
Thank you.
We come a half hour early. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else before us? I wish everybody good evening. Thank you.